I'm not feeling well today. I don't know, no reason. I didn't sleep well, but that's not it. It's this thing I have, and I don't know if it's nature or nurture. Meaning, I don't know if it was passed on from my dad, but my dad used to maneuver in extremes. He would either act like he won the lottery or that the sky was falling. He lived in panic and fear or on cloud nine. And when he was happy, he was such a joyful, fun, charismatic, inappropriate in a good way, a silly kind of person. And then, of course, when he was sad or down, when he was stressed out, he took hostages, and growing up in that house, I was always worried. I think I was worried about things I shouldn't have been worried about at a young age because my dad just wasn't aware of how his trenches, him, dipping into the lower frequencies and feeling discouraged and whatever he was going through, how much that bled, rippled into, impacted his children, But anyway, so I've always thought, like, am I bipolar? I know my dad was an addict, so, or he was an alcoholic, so I don't know if it had to do with that, or I don't know, maybe he was bipolar. I don't know. Anyway, I also don't want to throw around labels like bipolar, ADHD, narcissism, and there's a difference between narcissistic tendencies or a narcissistic personality disorder. And I think we live in a world where we throw around a lot of labels. So I don't want to label myself. It's okay that I woke up and I'm not feeling well, or I'm mentally not feeling well, not feeling kind of discouraged and blah, gloomy, foggy. I want to talk today about a superpower we have. And I was thinking about this on my way home from my morning pour over that you could hear me sip and probably cringe every time I do it. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. The superpower that we have, one of them, is empathy. And I want to talk about it in a way, hopefully a new angle, or maybe something that you haven't heard before, because it's something that we talk about a lot. I'm sure you've heard about empathy, and a lot of people saying to do it, kind of like practicing gratitude, forgiveness. All of these big words that we know we should start practicing. Some of us don't know how. Some of us don't know what it means. Some of us feel like we're doing it, but we're not, right? If someone hurts you, if you are angry at someone, it's usually because someone hurt us. If someone was reactive to you, and instead of reacting back, which is what most of us do, and maybe part of that is coming from our own fears, equaling protection or whatever. But instead of the knee jerk, instead of reacting back, instead of punching back, instead of whatever that looks like, it doesn't have to be literally a punch. If you could try to understand or get very curious about where that action, those words, whatever the person did is coming from, meaning he or she has a story. And so to get curious about what they're going through, what they're struggling with, and maybe what they did was a result of that. I mean, not even maybe, chances are it was. And exploring that, getting curious about that. To me, that's what empathy looks like. It's not just this fancy word of, walking someone else's shoes. What do you think it's like for them? Those kind of phrases, I think, can be slippery because we hear them a lot. But if you can get curious about one story, where they're at in their life, what they've gone through, and why they would do what they just did or say what they just said, or even if it's something really simple like not returning a text or whatever it is, right? Then what happens is there's a lot more room for compassion, and you're humanizing the person. But the other thing that you're doing, and this is what I really want to talk about, is you are stretching yourself. You are minimizing internalization, because a lot of times, because when I say stretching yourself, of course I mean growth, but also by stretching yourself, you are leaning into possibly something that's uncomfortable, and at the same time growing and minimizing internalization. So let me explain that. So whenever someone does something to us, it's very easy for us to blame ourselves, right? It's very easy for us to say, maybe this has something to do with my worth. Maybe I'm defective. Maybe, and that's why it hurts so much, is, we take things personally. And from that hurt, the action can be, anger, or another, a reaction back or whatever. A lot of times saying things, doing things that we regret, right? But if we take a beat and we explore the other person's story, or at least get curious about it, and then create that room where then we can be more compassionate and see the person not as a monster, but someone who's trying, someone who's struggling, someone who is reacting not because he or she is a horrible person, but because that's all they know, and maybe they don't have the tools to respond. So now we have humanized that person. There is a door that's been opened for compassion. And the other thing that happens is whatever they did, you take less personally, because you now see it coming from somewhere, their story, their whatever, childhood, something that they struggled with, their fears. And that's where the blame goes, instead of the finger being pointed at you. So a lot of people don't realize this, but by being empathetic to someone else who has hurt you, you're also protecting yourself. You're pushing the finger that we usually point at ourselves away. You are cutting the cord from tying whatever it is that the other person thinks you are, right? Like whatever it is that the other person didn't take well, and why that person was reactive, so that you're cutting the cord from that to your worth. Because a lot of times we, when we are hurt or someone does something to us, we feel that we are less than. We feel that we, there's something wrong with us. And so by trying to understand the other person, where what they did comes from, you are now blaming yourself less. I'm trying to think of a personal example. I have been in a relationship. I've been in many, but one of my relationships that expired, I thought things were cool, and then she sent me an email that was very character assassinating and blaming, and there was a lot of anger in this email and lots of pain, and it was very easy for me to blame, to get angry back, and instead I took a moment and I started to think about her story. And what it did was it made me put myself in her shoes, and it made me realize, oh, this is why she's so angry, because of these beliefs, or because of this upbringing, or because of these things that have happened to her. Of course, anyone would be this hurt and this angry. And so it made me understand that better, which then made me take her email less personal. Now, of course, when I first read it, I took it very personally, and I internalized and thought I was a piece of shit, and I, was sad that she had so much hate still toward me. And so I kind of like blamed myself and wanted to be responsible for my actions. But then if I, as I sat and decided to actually practice and deploy some empathy, instead of just getting angry back, it's like throwing a boomerang, and then the boomerang comes back to you, And so I was empathetic. I got curious about her story, why she said the things she said, understood it better, put myself in her shoes, see the damage, the hurt, the pain that I caused. And then by doing all of that, I blamed myself less. The process of understanding someone's story and why that hurt that person and why they reacted the way they did caused me to blame myself less. Instead, I don't know if the word is blaming her story, but the weight was now more on her story, less on me. Now, at the same time, it wasn't a way of me deflecting. I did take ownership of my actions and how I hurt her, sure, but I didn't internalize and feel that I'm defective or less than or a piece of shit today because of that, right? I understood better. Oh, this reaction tells me that how much it hurt her, right? And of course, I played a factor in that, Anyway, so if you are holding on to any kind of resentment or anger, or if someone recently hurt you in some way, instead of reacting back, instead of just unfollowing, unfriending, sending people to voicemail and cutting people out of your life, see if you can get curious about their story and why they did what they did. And if you could try to understand that, I mean, the best thing would be to actually have a conversation, but that doesn't happen realistically often. So just to try to understand that, see where that comes from, and the process is also going to give you a lot more freedom, a lot less internalization, and I think you'll feel better about yourself. Thank you for listening. Be well.